All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be back. It's been a while. It's the 8th day of January 2017. We have made it to the new year. Welcome aboard. My name is Doug Owen. I am your host and the proud editor of blacklistednews.com. Not fake news, real news that's just not popular and not that popular is probably the best way to put it. Things that the media, the government, their corporate sponsors would not rather talk about because it's not divisive enough and it really strikes at the root rather than talking about all of the symptoms of modern day life, the political atmosphere, what's happening on the Hill, all of the stuff that's happened over the last 3 weeks. It's been crazy. So we counter that and talk about it. Social commentary, political analysis, all of that good stuff. You can go to blacklistedradio.com. That's my website. That is the hub, the mothership. We have an interactive chat room there for people listening to the podcast. We do the show live to tape. We record it through the mothership, Republic Broadcasting, and then we put it out there for you to the masses through just about every medium possible. You can tweet at me. Great way to get a hold of me. BLN Radio is the handle. You can text me anytime, 512-222-3067. Comments, things that you'd want to address during the show, anything you want. So before we get to all of that, 2017, well, let's just talk about 2016 for a moment before we jump into the new year, the tech revolution year, all of the things that we consider this year, or at least the media thinks this year is going to be a springboard towards. But 2016, this is the meme, the narrative that it was the worst year ever. Maybe if you were infatuated with Hollywood, you would think that it's the worst year ever. Maybe if you looked at the statistic amount of deaths in Chicago, you would think it was the worst year ever. And you know, there were several years in the 1990s where there were more murders, more unnecessary death and violence that occurred in Chicago. They weren't calling it a war zone. I don't know if you've been watching the Lester Holt specials talking about gun violence and whatnot. So it's kind of a relevant topic considering some of the things that are happening today. But wow, coming into 2016 was not the worst year ever. It was on record for being one of the highest years for the U.S. and Russia doling out military weapons to despot dictators and, you know, God only knows who, really, throughout the Middle East, primarily, plenty going to South America. There were 21,000 bombings by the Nobel Peace Prize winning Barack Obama on his way out. So, I mean, just in 1 year alone, 21,156, something like that was the grand total, which probably isn't even that shocking anymore. You know, that's become progressive. So apparently 2016 is a horrific year because a lot of people that we liked, including, you know, me personally, Merle Haggard, died. But you know, 2017, we are here. I am a new father once again. My second son was born on Tuesday morning at 3:20 a.m. after 30 hours of labor. It's been a long time since I stayed awake for 36 hours, and that was a pretty draining experience. But of course, nothing that compares to what that was like for my wife. Unfortunately, you know, one of the things you have to be in this life is amenable. And our first child, we went to a birthing center. We had a midwife. It was very peaceful and posh. It was really nice. The setting, the atmosphere, you're in control of just about every aspect of your pregnancy and the delivery. You can do it in the water. You can do it in the bed. You can do it standing up if you're able. So a lot of freedoms that my wife really liked. And so this time we ended up having to to use a hospital, which was St. David's downtown Austin. And I have to give kudos. I was pretty surprised, pleasantly surprised with the experience. You always hear about them wanting to take the babies away from the parents and put them in the NICU and just horror stories. Trying to force vaccinations on people. If they don't take the vaccines, then CPS, Child Protective Services, or some other organization for the baby's safety, of course, gets involved. I mean, so there's a lot of horror stories out there. It's pretty scary when you think about it. But they were really receptive to us not wanting to vaccinate initially. They asked, do you want to do vaccines? Is he on a delayed schedule? I mean, she put all of those options out there. So I was really impressed with that. And most of the wishes of my wife, like not to wash him with antibacterial soap for 24 or 48 hours, using oral organic vitamin K. For all of you parents out there, you know what vitamin K is. Coagulates the blood. Kids, their blood isn't quite working yet, so vitamin K is, they have a synthetic that they've been shooting into kids, and there's a lot of research. You research vitamin K, you can go down a rabbit hole. But anyway, we wanted to do it orally, giving him the organic vitamin K I think we bought from Amazon.com. They were cool with that. So after several sleepless nights, a lot of blood, a lot of crying on my part, on the baby's part, on my wife's part, on everyone's part, we brought our second into this world. And I want to thank all of you people that donated and supported us. Ivana, Lila, Sarah, you guys, Robert, really did show not only moral but also financial support for the show. So that means a lot. Really geared up to do this show. Of course, it's been 3 weeks, so it feels like forever. And but it was nice getting the time off. I won't be going back to work for the next week, or at least not to my regular day job. So it gives me a chance to spend some time with family and really just ingratiate or immerse myself in Blacklisted News, all the other things that go into the media empire, the alternative media empire that we have built here. So, wow, we're here. It's amazing. Every year we hear about economic doom, the end. The end is nigh, potential martial law, the invasion by the Chinese that are waiting on the border. There's a lot of things that you find out on the internet and other people talking about on their shows that makes it seem like it's an epic end of the world type event just around the corner. And it might very well be, but I guess that's why I'm all the more happy to make it here. One more year on planet Earth. So I hope all of you had a great Christmas. If you know people that are struggling, hopefully you spent time with them. It's one of the most depressing times for people. Now everybody's in the mode to get fit. You're seeing all those fitness commercials and New Year's resolutions that people are striving for. That would have been a fun show. What's your New Year's resolution? I never have one. Never think about it. It's not a resolution to lose 10 pounds. Actually, over the last week, I've lost 10 pounds. Not sure how, but I think it had something to do with all of the hospital food. So, let's talk about Trump. The inauguration, January 20th, will happen unless something that Michael Moore and maybe even the neocons, the people inside of the deep state, would be able to, if there was ever, a chance, they may be able to do something. And that's really been the narrative for the Trump campaign. Everybody said, ha, 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 ha. No way. Not possible. And then, his own party tried to usurp power away from him and tried to run, dark horse. And I mean, just everyone and everything was against him. And somehow he's going to become the president of the United States in just a few days. So let's talk about it. Trump has, definitely taken a different approach. He reminds me of a JFK, somebody who's kind of rich, that saw the real system beyond the swamp, what people talk about, but the actual deep state, the intelligence services, intelligence agencies, and has rebuked them. One of them was John F. Kennedy. Actually, I think he's the only one I can think of. So, this whole show that's happening with Donald Trump, if you're not aware, the biggest problem that he has, according to Chuck Schumer, is that he is lining up against the neocons and those in the intelligence services. Charles Hugh Smith, who I'm a big fan of, had a really interesting piece. Trump aims to cut the neocon deep state off of the knees. I'll read just a portion. The neocon neoliberals, we talk about a lot here on the show, must be fired and put out to pasture before they do any more harm. I've long held America's deep state, the unelected national security state, often referred to as a shadow government, is not a unified monolith, but a deeply divided ecosystem in which the dominant neocon neoliberal oligarchy is being challenged by elements which view the neocons, the neoliberals' agenda as a threat to national security and to the interest of the United States. And I think that's very genuine. I mean, when you saw what happened with James Comey and the reemergence of the emails that are being blamed on Russia, which we could talk about Russian hacking to the point of ad nauseum. We got a few points, but the definitive proof, the smoking gun, has not been revealed. And at this point, I don't think it would matter, even if the U.S. government did. But nonetheless, back to this idea that there is this deep division, people inside the FBI, intelligence agencies, some of those people in that ecosystem are trying to definitely ostracize the Hillary Clinton club, the Clinton crime family. And because if you look at what the CIA has done, before we talk about dismantling it and where Trump will get with that, interestingly enough, he's called back U.S. ambassadors, which are spies. Donald Trump orders Barack Obama's ambassadors to resign their posts in unprecedented move. And of course, we can talk about the tit and tat and how Israel factors into these last throes of Barack Obama's lame duck presidency. But this is pretty interesting. Donald Trump has yet again proved that he is intent on ripping up the diplomatic rule book. In an unprecedented move, the president-elect's team are reported to have demanded ambassadors appointed by Barack Obama to leave their overseas posts by Inauguration Day on January 20th. The decision to provide no grace period for politically appointed ambassadors marks a significant break with decades of tradition. Now, if Donald Trump is as enlightened as he says he is, because he knows a lot more about what's really happening than the CIA. And let's be honest, I mean, even if you take the CIA and what we know, the last 40 years of world history, or at least U.S. world history, the Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, I could just go through the list of foreign assets that have been able to attack the United States, and the CIA has done nothing. They might tell you that they've made a safer, better world in the last 20 years, but I would point to the utter chaos and war crimes and genocide that are being committed in Syria by the U.S., probably by Russia, definitely by the Assad regime, and by a lot of other gangsters and groups of different sects, from the Khorasan group, which is the new title for Al-Qaeda, to El Nusra Front. I mean, you just have a lot of religious sects and different, basically gang members. ISIS terrorist, which is just a very blanket term for people that are fighting at the interest of the United States and Turkey. Turkey Erdogan has had his coup. He is definitely working both sides with the Russians, and that's kind of where that whole proxy war lies. So if you think that we're doing well in the diplomatic realm, you'd have to wonder about all of the red lines that Barack Obama had and whatnot. But really, back to this idea that Trump knows what's happening. If he does, then most of these ambassadors, they have to be compromised by Hillary Clinton. Most of their communications, most of their reputations, all of the dirt that the Kremlin has on them, it only makes sense to remove these people, to kind of recuse the U.S., get fresh voices with new technology, maybe not in the Russians' hands, into these key positions. So it's definitely interesting. Chuck Schumer says Trump is, quote, dumb to cross the intelligence community. Payback lightly. This comes from The Hill, so pretty mainstream media outlet. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer let it slip, a terrifying reality when it comes to the power of our nation's president over the executive branch. Agencies like the CIA have. In an interview Tuesday with MSNBC's Rachel Maddow, she's a handsome one, Schumer said President-elect Donald Trump, I can't get past it. When we have comedians that are now considered to be, legitimate voices, journalists, people like her, you just have to wonder. But anyway, Chuck Schumer went on her show and said he's being, quote, really dumb by taking on the intelligence community because he does, quote, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So a little friendly advice from a New Yorker to another New Yorker, from Chuck Schumer. So is this a military coup? Of course, you have all of the military brass from Mad Dog Mathis to the Defense Intelligence Agency, and a lot of conservatives and power brokers in economics and finance. When it comes to the CIA, controlling and manipulating the black market, not to mention the global markets, is part of that stability and infrastructure building and providing what you would consider, I guess, to be national security. It's imperative that economies implode only when they are supposed to, not when they're not supposed to. So that goes into the wheelhouse of the CIA. But I've talked about this so much. People get so wrapped up in the president, and up until this point, we haven't had any president talk about the deep state, much other than the ones that created it. You don't hear a lot of people discussing the Federal Reserve, something that at least Donald Trump talked about. The Federal Reserve was a freakish boogeyman that people only in the conspiratorial realm would even touch. So that's interesting to me. That's what makes him kind of the X factor in this equation. Whether or not he goes forward with this, and of course people are saying, he's going to be assassinated, just a matter of time. I have no idea what the future holds, but I think it might be a lot deeper than people think. But there are those neocons and neoliberals, the Kagans, all those people at the Council on Foreign Relations that have done a horrific, evil job in the Middle East, and people are starting to recognize that. We'll take your calls and talk much more about all of this on the other side. It's Blacklisted Radio. Stay tuned. Well, regardless of how much Abby Martin, The Truth Seeker, or any other RT program you watch, it doesn't matter, because all of this has justified the Department of Homeland Security now designating the election system as critical infrastructure. This happened on the 6th of January, just 2 days ago, when not too many people were paying attention, more hyped up about Trump and whether the Russians are controlling our politicians and whether or not they groomed Trump. It's another story. The fact that he may have $1.8 billion in debt out there. People are like, so what, Doug? So what if he has $1.8 billion? I don't know. I've never had that much debt, and when you have that much debt, you might control the situation. That's how the Federal Reserve, holding debt puts you in a powerful position. I think it was Trump that said, that the banks, they came to him, and I paraphrase, but they came to him and asked him, hey, you've got a problem, man. You owe us all this money, and we don't see you able to pay us back. Got a huge problem. He said, no, we've got a huge problem. You've got a big problem, because if you don't help me, I can't get your money back. So anyway, food for thought, kind of sets the show here. But anyway, so the Department of Homeland Security has used the Spectre, even though no infrastructure was tampered with, no votes. We keep hearing about them interfering in the election system. That itself is a psyop, because when you hear that, you automatically assume that there's something that they did electronically. Somehow they hacked into our election system. Nothing could be farther from the truth. So, it kind of blows my mind. The Department of Homeland Security is taking over the U.S. election system. Boom, like that. It happens. And that's one of the things I really kind of, the downside to Donald Trump. And I would think that most people that are freaked out or, anti-Trump would agree, is that the amount of power that has been bestowed to the executive branch is so that, you have the makings of a really Orwellian dictatorship, an authoritarian force that the world has never seen. When Obama had it, it's fine. When Obama, drops 21,000 some odd bombs throughout the Middle East, primarily in Pakistan and Syria, not a big problem. Scares the hell out of people with Donald Trump. And of course, his authoritarianism, or his penchant for talking about authoritarianism, something that, definitely concerns me. So one of the things that is going to continue is the unfortunate mass shooter situations, incidents that have become all too common. And we have another one, and it's very, very odd. It's probably the most interesting one for somebody like me thus far. You have this Fort Lauderdale shooter, shoots 5, kills 5, injured, I think 11 others. And he had just received the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal. And of course, if you're not familiar, Esteban Santiago was arrested for this shooting in the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Huge story here in the U.S. Served in Iraq, earned 11 awards, including that he was, somebody who went to war and came back apparently very damaged. That's a story in and of itself, and this ongoing, thought or worry that people have that we can't trust veterans with firearms because these people are coming back. They're crazy, and a lot of those people that are coming back and very, very emotionally disturbed end up becoming, police department, police, officers, and working for private security contractors, because that's what you know and that's what you've done. So that, really makes a pretty scary dynamic here in the country. But it's kind of, I also think that that's kind of a way to start, pushing that we can't trust the veterans thing that's become more popular. At least it's something that I'm picking up on with a narrative with a lot of the news that I see. But anyway, so you have this story of the Miami Herald. Most of you already know that he said the government was controlling his mind, forcing him to watch ISIS videos, that he had it under control. He went to the FBI and told them that the CIA was controlling his mind. The FBI took a firearm. They actually met him in a car, got out of his car with his newborn son still in the car, told the FBI that they were trying to control his mind, and doing all of this to him, this psychotic, electronic harassment basically is what he believed he was under. Took the gun from him. Went through a 31-day check after. Didn't shoot him, apparently. I would think that something like that might usually end up in somebody dying, but they gave him a psychiatric evaluation. They looked him over, said, hey, here's your gun, haven't broken any laws, good to go. Bought a one-way ticket, wham bam, ends up at Fort Lauderdale and starts shooting people. Pretty crazy story. And I don't know if I really have a lot of insight on as to whether or not he was being controlled by the government. Of course, this is always the key opportune time for people to talk about MK Ultra and the vast amount of mental screenings and different mental psychological operations that the U.S. government has conducted throughout history with drugs and all sorts of electronic equipment. I mean, not to mention poisons, radium, the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, we could talk all about all of those people that became lab rats for the military-industrial complex post-World War II and a lot during the World War I era. I mean, forced sterilization of women. There's no doubt that the government has messed with people, and the government, not just our government in the United States of America, but governments around the world do stage false flag terrorism, false narratives, propaganda, social media campaigns that are part of a psychological campaign to control not only their people, their populace, but everything from the stock market to their presence overseas. I mean, it's so intertwined. So you have to kind of take it. I take all of these events pretty much for what they are, and I look at what they usher in. Just talking about the Russians with absolutely no factual evidence was just because the media and people in government talked about it enough, and these intelligence agencies leaked enough of this to their outlets, including the Washington Post and beyond. This was the justification for the Department of Homeland Security taking over our elections. Anyway, that kind of leaves us with these instances, wondering who done it, what happened, was the U.S. government involved? Beyond that, and for me, the jury's out. It's about gun control. Now, I'd point to you this video. It's pretty gruesome in Jerusalem of a truck ramming into soldiers, killed 5 and injured 15 others, becoming a new mode of attack, literally, for those that want to cause harm. It's kind of odd, you don't see a lot of stuff like this happening in Israel. Huge attacks, usually, but there are enough people out there that are upset, and you have this instance where somebody has a vehicle, which it's more powerful than a gun. It can hurt more people in a single shot, really, than a lot of weapons out there today. And so it goes beyond the gun issue, whether or not this guy should have had a gun. And that's going to be the question. Hey, you got a psych evaluation. We should be able to take your gun from you. We should be able to keep people safe because obviously this is a failed system. So we need to fix the system. So there are always going to be opportunities like this for the government to say, hey, we need more control. We need more checks, more regulations, more databases, and so on, more money, more government, more people to keep you safe. At the same time, I mean, this guy told the government that, hey, I'm crazy. I've been watching ISIS videos. They're telling me to kill Americans. What should I do? Oh, no problem. Okay. Wasn't a matter of a lack of intelligence or having the quantum supercomputers to process data that they received from Syria or some other, fantastic, same thing that happened with the Berlin massacre a few weeks ago. I mean, the guy was riding with the German intelligence agent, got a ride. He got a gun from Sweden, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knew about it. It's just, it's always frightening to me where people say, well, we just got to give the government more rights. Obviously, if we just gave them everything and we just disarmed ourselves and asked the government for permission for everything that we do in our lives, that we'd somehow have a better world. And that's really what it comes down to if you're of that mindset. People are searching for solutions. What do we do? What do we do? Do we lock down people at the front gate? Where do we put the barricade? How many naked X-ray body scanners do we need? Do we need to scan your car when you come to the airport? Do we need to frisk you? Get the full prison experience, or maybe like the Israeli-Palestinian border experience when you try to cross between those two countries. I mean, so you hear that all the time. Israel's safe, buddy. It's safe over there. Look at how they're got to go through that stuff. Well, shows that both of these incidents that happen, that more and more and more isn't going to provide a solution. And even if this thing is absolutely organic, and almost to me, just throwing it out there, because it sounds so crazy, I almost think that it's organic. If the government really was mind controlling this guy, do you think that they'd let him go and talk to the FBI? And it also is interesting because you have the FBI involved and the CIA is the one. It seems almost like a tit for tat for those out there that believe that there is this, huge splintering inside of the deep state between the FBI, especially the DIA, the National Geospatial Agency, all these other groups that are part of that aforementioned ecosystem. But Esteban, he will be remembered as this guy, this decorated war hero that somehow fell through the cracks, that was obviously mentally ill and no one would help him, and we need more and more government to provide that solution. And if it wasn't him, it would be somebody else. It doesn't matter. The next guy comes right through. All right, we've got a few minutes. There's a couple other things that I just want to talk about. Talking about the police state. I don't know if you saw this one. It didn't get any attention. Hairstylists, barbers, nail technicians are now forced to spy on customers in Illinois. They want all of those people, cosmetologists, barbers, estheticians. It's probably, I don't know what that is. But anyway, hair braiders, nail technicians to identify domestic abuse victims by spying on their customers, according to an article in the Chicago Tribune. A new Illinois law will force hairstylists and the like to report domestic violence by taking advantage of their trusted relationship between their clients. Now, if you want to have a license to cut hair in the state of Illinois, and this is the same state that has all of those fine gun control laws that are working so well in Chicago, might as well just put some salt on that. They see this as an opportunity. So to get your license, you have to go to one of these seminars to identify domestic abuse. And the government sees this special relationship that people have between themselves, and a personal relationship with friendship in a lot of cases that you have with your barber as a perfect way to get in there. And, well, at first it's domestic abuse. And that seems like, well, who can argue with domestic abuse? It's never okay to hit women, and it's a huge problem in society, yada, yada, yada. And it is. I'm not dismissing the issue. But, well, then maybe they're terrorists. Well, maybe they don't vaccinate their kids. Maybe they do this. Maybe they do that. Maybe they're, they voted for Trump. Maybe, whatever it may be. It opens that door. And, of course, the government understands using this idea of protecting you. We talk about it so often on the show. I mean, it's really a mainstay. This idea that, you are being taxed, you're having money stripped from you unethically and illegally to pay for your own protection, to pay for your privilege to exist here in the United States of America. Other places charge you different things to exist within their lands. But this is just the creeping police state where it's normalizing spying, normalizing this for the better of the customers, where people, almost all people that are in licensed industries that the government can regulate industries, have to take these courses. I see it. I have a actual license in the state of Texas to do electrical work and work on other electronic systems. And every year the requirements become more. This year they wanted to fingerprint me. They needed the fingerprints. And not only that, you have to pay for the privilege. So it goes on. This is also a money getter. It's not always the police state. I mean, it usually is, but it's also, we can make these people do more things, and they have to take continuing education, and it's all under the auspices of trying to help women. But now we have, more revenue, and we force them to go to all, before you know it, you've created this business, this whole franchise, this parasite, to protect people. And if you're, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're being abused by your husband, or your spouse, or your wife, and I knew a guy that was. And it's really hard, because when you're being abused by your wife, there's almost no one out there that you feel you can go to. At least a wife, people feel very sympathetic. If you're a man, people laugh at you. It's pretty sad deal, actually. Oh, how did we get there? Yes, your beauticians are spying on you. That's the world we live in. It's 2017. We will continue on the other side, right here on Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. Final segment here on Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, there's just too much to respond to. Too many things to try to bring, a fine tooth analysis to even encompass in this one show. So I just want to hit some of the topics out there. Of course, the decision by Barack Obama in his last month or so here to create two new protected lands, 300 acres, 300,000 acres of that in Nevada, has prompted calls for a confrontation among those out there, the independents, the American militants, as Vocative calls them. I would say, patriots, people that believe in states' rights and believe that the federal government is out of control, and the only way to put them back in place is to have a face-to-face confrontation. At some point, talk is cheap, and that's what you're seeing with the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. Although there have been some developments there with some of the different tribes. I think some of them are getting tired, and maybe some of them are being bought out. But anyway, on the ground, people actually resisting. We talked about, I think in the last podcast, or the one before that, about how they're trying to push through and make any kind of peaceful protest that does stop the hand of government being classified, and you could be charged with economic terrorism. So anyway, this 300,000 acres encompasses Cliven Bundy's ranch. It's a long story, and the U.S. government has been trying to make this a wildlife refuge for a long time. And it could be because of valuable resources, or just the state wanting more and more control. That's what the whole standoff with Cliven Bundy and Emmett Bundy and all of the people involved there, from Pete Santilli on up, that occupied that wildlife reserve for quite some time, and ultimately were infiltrated, and one man died as a result of that resistance. So I think that this is going to be something that's going to probably heat up in the next few months as the winter snow thins and people get more and more upset about it. Of course, if you look at the state's viewpoint, Bundy is a renter. These people sold their land to the government. Many of them years ago and had been leasing government land, and in the Cliven Bundy's case, not paying taxes, whether because he doesn't want to or because he feels that he doesn't have to. Principally, you can have a principled tax resistance protest, and I'm all for citizen dissident actions and refusing the state, because that brings things to a head and forces. I mean, even though you can't find sets in the actions, and sometimes just sitting down doesn't seem like something revolutionary, but it does. It's one of the few ways to force the government to respond. And usually they will hit you with sticks and make you bleed until cameras are on, and it makes them look bad, and then they move to plan B. So that's going to probably boil up in the next few months. It's going to be a wild and crazy year. 2016 was. I want to thank all of you guys. I'll be back next week for another live edition, power-packed. I will have lots of rest and plenty of time for you to communicate and throw out your thoughts. 512-222-3067 throughout the week on the text line. Thanks to Ken in the studio. Thanks to Republic Broadcasting for being the mothership and putting this out there. And thanks to you for supporting and listening to the show. I hope you had a great 2016, and I hope your 2016's even better. So until next week, everyone out there, take care.